Hi everyone! So to prep for 0.4 I decided to jump back into PoE 2 and start a fresh character on solo self-found, and I had an absolute blast with this Chronomancer build, so this is why I want to show this off to you guys. Now I'm not really sure if this is gonna stick around for the next patch, but I don't think it's really in nerf territory or something like that, so there is a good chance that I will be able to update this and put it out as a full guide for 0.4. I didn't really hear a lot of good things about Sorc in 0.3, so I decided to just make one, and I've never played a Chronomancer before, so this was something that I was really excited to try, and well, it turned out really successfully. So this is gameplay from typical T60 maps right now. This is on solo self-found, so I'm relatively weak compared to what you could achieve in trade, for example, and I had an absolute easy time progressing through the game. I don't think I've actually ever gone to the 60 map that easily as I have done this with this build. So this is a frost wall build, an ice chronomancer I call it, where we spawn these walls and then we blow them up with ice nova. That was the original idea. I wanted to play some cold build, and this is what came out of it. And it turns out that Chronomancer has some pretty good synergies for this from the Ascendancy. Most importantly, the node that gives you a 33% chance to not make your skills go on cooldown. So Frostwall has multiple charges and they come back every few seconds. And with this node, you can cast it a lot more often than you otherwise could. So like this, you can do effectively a 2-button rotation between Frostwall and then blowing them up with Ice Nova. There are some other skills in there that you can press situationally, mostly just debuff enemies or buff your damage. There are 2 different curses. One is a Chronomancer specific one that is mostly just used on the bosses. The other one is Elemental Weakness. Then we have Mana Tempest, which is a very strong button on this build because it gives you something in the range of like 40 to 80% more damage as long as you stay inside or you have been in there very recently. And like this you have a lot of damage output. And as I was progressing with this build, I noticed that just being a cold build is not necessarily the best option, and then I tried to include Painter's Servant Gloves. So instead of just freezing everything, which I can still easily do while having this item equipped, I can now also ignite and shock them. So shock is a nice extra damage boost. But with all those 3 elements combined, we can pick up extra synergies on the passive tree that give us very efficient damage scaling. On top of that, we also have Snap, which is a like ailment consumption spell. So whenever enemies are ignited or shocked or frozen, you can press this button, and then depending on how many ailments are present, it will do more damage to them. So you have like a huge finisher burst that sometimes can even just evaporate elites by itself. Not only that, but the Chronomancer offers you some pretty flexible options with more defenses if you want. There is Temporal Rift, which I was actually really surprised for how good it is. So you think that just going back 4 seconds in time is not very useful in Path of Exile, but it turns out this actually can really save your ass a lot. So in Endgame, every map has only 1 portal, so if you die, it's over. Or you might not want to, for example, like log out and then run back in or something to save yourself. Or you might not want to redo a boss fight and you can just press this button every time you take a big hit, you lose 5k, yes, boom, it's back. Or you get surrounded in a ritual, you press the button, boom, you're free. And you can do this every few seconds. It's actually incredibly good. And you can always get out of sticky situations with this. And in my setup, this second curse that I have, the Inevitable Fate, is not really such an important inclusion here. So you can also try to, for example, go for the slow aura from the Chronomancer, or for the time freeze if you like that more, or even for the cooldown reset. So there's a bit of flexibility there with your Ascendancy, depending on which way you want to go. You can make it even safer, or you can have even an extra button for more burst. And it's up to you what you choose as your last Ascendancy. So I'm going to show you off my planner here. So this is what I made. This is with a bit of different progression steps as well. So we have the full endgame skills set up here. You can see all of the skill gems and so on. And this is roughly the order of priority basically. But we also have the campaign here. So Act 3 to 6 and then Act 1 and 2. The thing is that Frostwall is, I think, a level 7 skill. So you will get it like end of Act 2, start of Act 3. something like that. So you have to play with something else until then. In my case, I used mostly Frostbomb and Spark. So Frostbomb can give you cold infusions that makes Spark really strong, and then you shoot out in all directions. You can combine this with like a Flame Wall and some Awful Storms. And then the Snap is like this ailment finisher that I talked about. So whenever you have like shocked or frozen or something like that enemies, you pop this and then you can do some big damage burst. And yeah, in Act 3, roughly, you will have like the main combo online. So this is when you get the Frost Wall and you have your Ascendancy for the 33% not consuming a cooldown. And like this, you can already start doing this main combo. Now we do want to pick up a bit more cooldown reduction where we can. So there is a little bit of stuff that we get on the tree. For example, up here, there is some cooldown recovery rate. So this definitely helps to smooth this out a little bit. It might not be super perfect at the start. And also later in the campaign, you have the pillar in Interlude 2 that gives you extra cooldown recovery. So it's just something to keep in mind. It gets better over time. And at some point, you can basically cast Frost Wall like every second or two or so reliably. And we combine this with something like Spell Cascade to spawn like 20 walls at once, and then we pop them with the Ice Nova, and you have a huge burst. Also note that the support gems change a little bit as you go through the progression, so you can also see them here if you go to the Act 1, 2 campaign or Act 3 and so on. So at the start, I was not playing this as a crit build, but later at like level 90 or so, I started transitioning to crit. So before that, you can do stuff like Unleash, Considered Casting, and then Controlled Destruction. So these support gems go onto many different skills here at the start. And then, for example, in late game, you see that I removed, for example, Controlled Destruction. And we also picked up extra crit chance here on the weapon and on the focus. And there's a bunch of stuff on the tree. So these are the nodes you want to pick the latest. And before that, you effectively just kind of pick up all of the like main, like, elemental damage nodes. There's stuff like this here and a bit of mana nodes here. There's like mana regeneration here pretty early on the Sorc tree. We also have exposure from the Frost Bomb. So you've popped this sometimes, especially on bosses and elites, or even when there's an abyss and you just put down the Frost Bomb in the middle of the abyss and then crawl out. They all get the exposure. That's very useful. And then you also have like the, for example, cold nodes. And once you start doing all elements of Painter's Servant, you can pick up all these other nodes here. And then as you go towards the end of the campaign, you want to start investing into Energy Shield a little bit. So there are also very strong nodes for Energy Shield right here at the Sorc start. There's a lot of stuff with like recharge rate, recharge, faster start of recharge, and then of course maximum ES. And here's also the extra area of effects. This is also something you want to pick up early. And yeah, these other nodes here, like crit that I mentioned, this is something you pick very late. So once you're like level 80 and level 90 or so, this is when you start investing into crit. Remove the support that prevents you from critting, the controlled destruction support, and then you kind of go up here into these other areas on the tree. I also have a few notes here, so you can just check this out, the Ascendancy order, what's that to go for, and these kind of things. So you can like refer to this here if you're unsure, or you can also just come and ask me about anything with the build. So I've been playing this from level 1 to now 93, I believe. I am confident I can do all of the hardest encounters in the game. I started bossing a little bit late yesterday, and I will do more today. And I expect we're going to take down, Breach 3, Arbiter, Uber Arbiter, and potentially even Simulacrum 3 with this. So I'm definitely blown away by how well this was working out, and it is an absolute blast to play this. You can also see the gear here, just want to note this. So Painter's Servant is an item that you want to go for pretty early. I also have this on my loot filter here. You can take my loot filter. It's a relatively soft one, but it kind of works, from start to finish. Maybe later you want to make it a bit stricter. But yeah, this is like kind of like one of the main items you're looking for, which is not that hard to get. And you can also go for some other uniques early on. So at Serious Disdain is kind of nice. I was using this for a while. Gives you lots of ES early on. Night Scale, so before you get the other glove, this gives you a lot of mana regen, which is kind of useful. And in late game, you can even go for a Sandstorm Visage. This is from Zarok in Trial of the Sakama. You can find this there. But I can also just go for like a normal helm if you want. And most of the gear is just pretty typical spell and energy shield stuff. So we try to stack a lot of energy shield. We don't want any of the other defenses. So especially your chest piece is going to be like the big carry here. Your helm can also give you a lot of ES. And you can also get a little bit from like focus and the other pieces. You want to get the movement speed, of course. A bunch of mana rolls don't hurt. Energy shield recharge rate is nice if you can get it. And on the weapon and often in particular, you want the extra spell ranks. You can get this from an essence. So try to get a good roll and then slam the essence in there. There's multiple different useful stats here. So there's spell damage, there's a crit. You can also have like a mana roll or something. It's also not terrible. And then you get the extra ranks on the essence basically for free at the end. And this is pretty much about it. Also, you may have seen this dueling wand here. So we have Spellslinger in this build. So this is an extra button that you can press to automatically cast another skill. In this case, we have Comet here. So Comet is usually a very long cast time, but it's very powerful. And with the Spellslinger, we don't have to suffer from the cast time. You can just call down 3 of them at once. It's a huge burst. So especially after you do your full setup on the boss with Frostbomb, Sigil of Power, Curse, and so on, then you press this button and it just calls down immediate comets, and you can do like millions in endgame with this alone, basically. And I sometimes burst bosses in like T60 maps in like 5 seconds with, you know, an ice wall or 2, and then the comets coming down, and boom, that's it. So we have a really huge damage burst, and I can also kind of sustain like 1,000,000 DPS or something like that on endgame bosses in longer fights even. So it is definitely looking pretty good, and my gear is definitely not what you see in this planner here. We also have the cast on elemental ailment, so we have even more comments, and they come out automatically. So this just helps a little bit while mapping, and every few seconds or so you get like one of these coming down. And since we do all 3 elements, we have a lot of these procs, and we also invest a little bit into shock chance and freeze build-up to make this happen even more frequently. And that's all you really need to know for this build. So you can come watch me play. I will still progress a little bit with this character, and then we'll see when 0.4 comes around. I do have this right now here in the PoE community planner, so you can find it there. I have like all my planners here. So for example, you can click on my name or something, and then you can like find the other builds as well if you want. But they are there, and you can also upload it if you like it. And enjoy the build, guys. So hope you like this. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.